All right, and now we got to talk about LeBron James,
LeBron
who
James.
the Lakers played a preseason game against the Phoenix Suns. And what was noteworthy about this is it was the first time that he and his son were on the court at the same time. People were talking about this, and LeBron reflected on it after the game, talking about what it means to him and, just kind of giving his thoughts and his emotions initially on what it was like to be the first NBA player who ever plays on the same court, on the same team, in the same game with his kid. Like none of that's ever happened before.
Yeah.
So this says LeBron James reflects on sharing court with Bronny for first time. As a father, it means everything. LeBron James reflective after LeBron James, I think there's a word missing there. LeBron James was reflective after sharing an NBA court with his son Bronny for the first time. Speaking to the press after the Los Angeles Lakers preseason match against the Phoenix Suns, LeBron expressed how unforgettable the experience was. It's pretty cool for the both of us, and especially for our family, said LeBron. It's definitely a moment that I will never forget. LeBron and Bronny shared a little over 4 minutes on the court in the second quarter of the game, which coincidentally happened on Bronny's 20th birthday. Elaborating on the thrill of it all, LeBron expressed just how important this moment was as a father by explaining his lack of a relationship with his own. For a father, it means everything, added LeBron. For someone who didn't have that growing up, to be able to have that influence on your kids and have that influence on your son, be able to have moments with your son, and the ultimate to be able to work with your son. That's one of the greatest things that a father could ever hope for or wish for. Bronny, when speaking to the press afterwards, expressed how he's learning to share the court with his father. I'm always thinking about that's my dad because that's literally my dad, said Bronny. But when I'm playing, he's just my teammate. That's all. Last week, NBA ESPN's Ramona Shelburne reported that the Golden State Warriors were extremely close to drafting Bronny, but decided not to out of respect for LeBron, who made it clear that he wanted to play with his son. So here is LeBron talking about this after that preseason game against the Suns.
For it to be on his 20th birthday, as a father, what does it kind of mean? How significant is that for you as a father?
Well, for a father, it means everything. For someone who didn't have that, growing up, to be able to have that influence on your kids and have the influence on your son, to be able to have moments with your son, and then ultimately, to be able to work with your son. I think that's one of the greatest things that a father could ever hope for or wish for. So it's pretty cool.
All right, so obviously, outside of NFL football stuff, um, this is the only bit of NBA news, if you will, that any of the media outlets are discussing because this is such a big deal, obviously, and it's going to be an ongoing narrative and storyline throughout this NBA season. So, what do you make of LeBron's initial comments about playing with Bronny and all of that good stuff?
There's two ways of looking at this situation, man. LeBron's clearly on the side of making a legendary thing here, as far as playing with your son, and nobody's ever been able to do that. And I can pretty much imagine how heartwarming and rewarded it is to see your son out there wearing a jersey, running up and down the court with you or what have you. So I really do understand that this was a dream of his that he always wanted, and it actually happened. Um, Hell, man, even when I used to play NCAA back in the day, where of course I was the coach. All right. And I simulated, my son being, because you got to create the recruits. So I was recruiting my son. Hopefully my son could come to my daggone school. And my son came to my school, man. And I had a heartwarming feeling when he would get an interception or something, like, even though it's a goddamn video game. And I didn't care if it was nepotism. He's starting over the other guy, even though his rating's lower. I did all of that. So when LeBron James has master control over the Lakers, all right, he wants his son drafted. He wants his son playing with him. And he doesn't care at what cost, because this is a dream of his and he wants to see it actualized. So I empathize with that. I really do get that. So there's a part of me that is happy for him when it comes to that, because he's actually able to have his dream actualized. However, the other side of this, the more daunting side of this, is that I think that, well, this is only LeBron's dream, and that Bronny is just here for the ride. The best way I can put this is, if you saw that Progressive commercial, uh, man, I laughed my ass off when I seen that. And yeah, man. And they was like, "Hey, man, God, come on, we need you out here on the field, man." And his dad's saying, "Hey, man, get out there. What are you doing?" And he's like, "Hey, man, I want to be an insurance salesman, bro. I don't want to be out here." Bronny just wants to play video games. He doesn't want to be out there. So when Bronny runs off and goes out there to go play video games after about 2 seasons, when his dad retires, and then Bron's gonna be like, "What are you doing? This was your dream." And Bronny's gonna turn around and says, "No, Dad, this was your dream." And I agree with that. I think that this is all LeBron's dream, and Bronny is just along for the ride. Now, I know there's a part of him that loves basketball. Hell, you don't get as good as he gotten. You don't put as much practice as you do if there's not a part of you that loves this game. All right. And I say good, relatively speaking, because he could, bust up some regular people. All right. But he's still not NBA ready. And it's shown itself in Summer League, and it's shown itself so far in the preseason. So my concern with this situation, even though on one hand, I am happy for LeBron, on the flip side of that, I'm concerned for Bronny. What this is doing for his psyche when he's going out there and not performing up to par, when the world is watching this and the world wants to make fun. Hell, I already saw a clip of Cat Williams making fun of this. And so, because he's not rising to the occasion. So, my concern is for Bronny's mental health, even as a millionaire and a billionaire dad. I'm still concerned about the kid because he seems to be a nice young man. So I'm not all the way torn. I'm more on the side of Bronny than LeBron. And I think this is just a selfish act. So, yeah, man, I just wish the best for Bronny, that is. But what are your thoughts, man, on LeBron James Sr. being proud of having that father-son moment, the first in NBA history?
I don't hate it. Real quick, I'll just get it out of the way. The only part about this that I don't like is if he truly isn't NBA ready, it can stymie a guy's development to have them be thrusted into NBA competition if they're not NBA ready. So my only misgiving with this is, if he isn't NBA ready, does it serve his development as well as possible to have him playing in actual NBA competition? So we will see if he just shows up on the roster every now and again, maybe against teams that aren't as good, but otherwise he's on like the G League or something like this. Like, we're not exactly sure how they're going to actually conduct his position on the team. But the only caveat with it is his like potential for not being quite NBA ready yet. And I do think that if a guy's not NBA ready, especially at his size, it's most beneficial to have him continue to develop as an NBA player at the lower levels, thereby making his position on the roster, playing in actual games, purely for symbolic reasons, to serve the idea of LeBron playing with his son and all of that good stuff. And some of that is a bit weird. Having said that, I will say this. I found myself thinking this is pretty cool to see, because I remember growing up, right? So I remember, when I went to college, when I was 18 and I went to college and I started hanging out with people who have money, because prior to going to college, I never really was around people who had money like that. So I go to college at a majority white university. and I start hanging out with people who have money. And I'm hanging out with them, and I go to their house. If they live locally, I'll go to their house. Sometimes, there were a few friends I had who lived in other parts of the state. And so during breaks or whatever, I'd visit them or whatever, and I just see how people lived. And I'm looking around, and like, these people live in these big houses, and they do stuff that I have no concept for. Like, they go kayaking and wakeboarding, parasailing, all of this stuff. Like, I didn't even know what that stuff was. Like, y'all do what? They have all of these extracurricular activities where they're doing all of this fly shit, and you learn more about them, and it's like, oh, their dad runs a dentist's office. Mom is a mom is a chiropractor, or maybe the dad was an attorney, and the mom is and their mom is you know a paralegal, or maybe you know what I'm saying. Like, maybe the dad runs his own hardware shop, and the mom is a doctor herself or something like this. Like, you get into the weeds learning about the family history of these people, and I see how the other side lives, quite frankly. And a lot of the ways that the kids live and operate and see the world is largely an extension of what their parents were able to provide for them. And this was an existence or reality that I had no concept for. I grew up, ain't nobody really in my family got money like that. I grew up middle class, lower middle class. We pretty much lived paycheck to paycheck. An extravagant vacation for me was going to Universal Studios once every couple years. You know, like, that was my idea of a lot of fun, going to Hollywood Beach or something like this. I didn't know what kayaking was. I didn't know what it meant to go wakeboarding. What the hell is that?
Mhm.
Camping? I don't know what that is. But you get around people, and they weren't all white people. A lot of these were black people, but they just came up with a little more than me. And you see how that kind of person lives, how they see the world, and how, for the most part, those sensibilities were largely imparted to them based upon the kind of life that their parents were able to afford them.
Mhm.
So I always wanted to be able to do that for my own children, because I didn't have that growing up. So I always wanted to be able to say, if my daughter wants to, do some stuff that my parents couldn't afford for my sister to do, I want to be able to do that. If my son wants to, be in all of these expensive ass hobbies that I couldn't afford to have, I want to be able to give it to him. It's generationally, you want to be able to improve upon the previous generation, or at least that's the idea.
Mhm.
So while there is an aspect of this that I do find a bit disconcerting, because it does seem to serve LeBron and his career legacy significantly, as opposed to how much it directly benefits Bronny as an individual player, there is a part of this that tugs at my heartstrings personally, because it speaks to the idea of how you can do better than the previous generation so that you can provide something for your kid that was unable to be provided to you. And I experienced a lot of this stuff firsthand. Going tubing, what the heck is that? Floating down a river on a giant inner tube. I didn't know what that was until I started hanging around people who could afford to do that as kids. And riding on ATVs and dirt bikes. I didn't know what it was like to experience something like that until I started hanging around kids whose parents could afford that for them. And I
Mhm.
really, it opened my eyes up to see, wow, there's people out here who actually do live like this.
Yeah.
And it isn't just purely rich people or millionaires, so on and so forth. It's just people that did well for themselves. So I kind of use that as a benchmark for how I want to be able to kind of orient my life trajectory. And so from that standpoint, there's a part of this for me that is kind of cool to see LeBron doing this, because I'm not going to feel sorry. At the end of the day, do I want the best for Bronny? Yes. Am I going to feel bad for him if he flames out? Not really. He's one of the highest NIL earners already, and he signed like a $7 million deal with the Lakers. I am not going to feel bad for a millionaire. I'm not, much less a 20-year-old millionaire who's already set for life. I'm not going to feel bad for the kid. So it's on them to be able to make sure that his career progresses as well as it possibly can. But symbolically, I do think that it's kind of cool, not going to lie, even though part of it does make me roll my eyes because at the end of the day, this is going to serve LeBron, I think, a little more than it actually serves the kid.
I hear that. Here's what I say. I can feel sorry for a millionaire kid, because I wouldn't feel sorry for a millionaire who cut and slashed his way to the top, stepped on people, and been a narcissistic arsehole his whole life in order to achieve those millions, and then cry, "Oh, woe is me, guys." It's like, you can kick rocks because you can look behind you, bro, and there's a lot of people in your wake. This young man just went along for the ride, kind of just floating in the inner tube, and then inner tubed his way to an NIL deal, inner tubed his way into millions of dollars. He doesn't have that same kind of crazy, at least he doesn't appear to, that crazy whatever thing that makes millionaires millionaires, that make you not care about anything that they got going on, so to speak, at least in my world. And so for this young man, I think he's still a kid. And I think because he lived such a pampered life, just on the basketball court, going to his dad's games and stuff like that, that he's still a green young man. You can see it in a lot of ways. And so he plays like that too. And so my concern for this young man is that he'll be a punchline, a laughing stock, a this or that, down the line, and he has to live with that. Now, yes, he can cry in his Ferrari, but millions of dollars, money means nothing. It pays your bills, and you can go kayaking, but it doesn't give you peace of mind. So my concern for him with all of this stuff, I want him to do well. I want him to be a serviceable NBA player, so people can get off of his back. And he's only in this position because he's not ready yet. And then people are projecting that he will never be ready, and they're attacking him as such. People in the media, of course, they're gonna say what they say and, hype him up and do all this stuff. And that's not helping him. That's not helping his case, because everybody sees with their own eyes what they're witnessing. But ESPN, play a highlight of him getting one layup in 22 minutes. That's not it either. So just let the kid be the kid, man. But he's not in that position right now because of all of these adults around him making these decisions for him. So my concern is for his mental health later, and now. And I just hope that with all of this stuff, him going to the G League, because I think that was the plan for him to go to the G League, is for him to, hopefully get some bearings about himself and just be a serviceable NBA player, Gabe Vincent, and just be out there and be effective and do stuff. And if he does that, then I'll be happy. And until he shows me that this guy is an arsehole as a human being, I'll always cheer for him, despite all of the weird stuff his dad may have done. So, but yeah, that's my concern for him, in the midst of all of this.
Yeah, I understand that. Unless he becomes Marcus Jordan, I'm probably not going to feel bad for him because that would be an indication that things went so sideways that he veered off into self-destructive behavior. Yeah. So unless he starts getting like that, I'm not going to feel too bad for him because, as you said, he's just a kid and he probably just wants to be off playing video games. If 2 or 3 years from now he stopped playing in the NBA and went and became a Twitch streamer and he's happy and content with his life, there's no room for me to feel sorry for that. At the end of the day, he'd be happy and he's not really regretful of anything that took place. So I just we'll just have to monitor what happens. If it comes to a point where it's like, heavy as the crown type deal and There's a lot of negative criticism levied his way for things that aren't really his fault. Perhaps I don't see that happening though, because as far as I can tell, LeBron is just Teflon, and by extension, his son is Teflon. No credible person in the media is really negatively critiquing Bronny. If anything, it's just trolls on the internet, which at the end of the day, who cares about that? But I just kind of feel like even if he doesn't pan out as a pro, if he moves on to be successful and happy doing something else in his life, and he's got all of that going for himself, and I mean, the money to me does play a role. It doesn't buy happiness, but it certainly facilitates it, in my opinion. It makes it better. And if he's able to move on to doing something different, and he starts streaming video games, or he becomes an influencer, or doing whatever, I don't know, but he's happy and content with his life, there's no room for me to feel sorry for him. The only thing that it's just with this LeBron stuff, like I said before, there's a part of it that does appeal to me based on everything that I said before. Just being able to see that, because it's sort of microcosmically gives me an extension of how I've always wanted to provide for my own seeds. So that's why I think it's kind of cool. But overall, and I've already said this is going to be used as leverage by his fans. And I'm talking about LeBron here. The more successful this experiment is, it's going to be used as increased leverage by his fans to shove it down my throat that he's the greatest player ever. And so when I say that it will stand to serve his career legacy more than it serves Bronny, that's my greatest problem, if you want to use that word, with this. But otherwise, it is what it is, man. He'll be fine. They'll be fine. If he ends up being a great pro, cool. If he doesn't, cool. Otherwise, I do think it's kind of cool, just because there is an other side to life. And if you believe any of the statistics, a good 75% of this country will never know what it's like to be on that other side because of economic circumstance. And if you strive to be on that other side so that your kid doesn't go to college and hang around a bunch of other kids who have more than him, and has him not even knowing that there's a whole other way to live, this can serve as a good way to be able to kind of show how you can go about making that happen for yourself. So I say cool, it is what it is.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say, and I agree with you to that extent, I'm not going to feel sorry for him if he is happy about life, but I would feel bad for him if he did show signs of madness, later. Because I'm like, man, he wouldn't have been like that if he had to go through all that crap. And at least I can project that. But if he's happy Twitch streaming, I'm ecstatic for him. If he's happy playing in the league, I'll be ecstatic for him. I just want the young man to be happy, because it seems like he's a cool dude. And so, but if there's anything in this where he's suffering in any kind of way, or looks like he, whatever, then that's when I'll have a problem with it. So, we'll see. As you mentioned, this is an experiment. Everybody's going to be sitting here watching it. ESPN ain't going to never let us, let it down. We're going to hear about it every damn day. So we'll be witnessing it, whether we like it or not. And I'm just wishing this young man the best, man. And, and LeBron, and for your legacy, bro, bro, there's no stopping these people. If the LeBronites, they'll never let him go. So you can have all the proof in the world, they'll never believe it. So so for those people that want to add this to the legacy, because it was already brainwashed, those people can already have it. To me, this is just as ridiculous as it is to you. But hey, man, life goes on. And but yeah, man. I gotta do some of that lazy river, sipping a bear claw.
It's a blast, man. I'll tell you, man. The most like my most enjoyed to this day, right? I'm 38 years old.
Yeah.
The most fun I've ever had on a birthday in my life. I turned 26 years old, and about 15, 20 people who I was friends with at the time, took me to a lazy river. They was like, "All right, man, you ever been tubing?" I didn't even know what that was. I'm like, "What is tubing?" They're like, "Oh, well, you basically just get on a giant inner tube and you float down a river and, you know, have drinks and just chill and have fun all day." So I was like, "All right, cool, I'll do it." The most fun I've ever had in my life. I promise you. I got in this giant inner tube. They had these big, and they go all out with this stuff. It was a cooler filled with jello shots and handcrafted and made drinks, and it was filled with ice. They had a rope. The cooler had its own inner tube. The cooler that had drinks had
Yeah.
its own inner tube. So there was a designated person who held the rope that would make sure that they kept the tube that was holding the cooler floating down the river with us.
Hysterical.
And at various points down the river, you would stop, and there would be like those tree swings and
Mhm.
like the little waterfalls and stuff. It was a blast. I'm just, it's fun. But if you grow up a particular kind of way and you don't know that that's something to do, and you're not exposed to it, it's like it's a way to kind of glean, quote unquote, how the other side lives. And if you're able to self-actualize in life to the point where, without spoiling your kids or your family, you can provide them with the other side of living, I think that that's a pretty cool thing. So that's what this reminded me of, because something tells me that LeBron, as goofy as he is, certainly spares no expense to show his children how the other side lives. So I think that that's just kind of cool.
For sure, man. Hey, shout out to Bronny, man, and
Yeah.
shout out to LaFreak off, man. Shout out to LaFreak.
Yeah,
Hey, man, I
no,
can't help it, dog. Hey, can't help
Good luck, Bronny.
it.